Hey guys, it's Raul again, and today I'll be talking to you guys about the books I read for fun between June and December. So the last monthly wrap-up I filmed was back in June, so all these books that I'll be talking about today are the books that I read after that wrap-up in June up until the end of the year that weren't school-related. So I'm going to make a separate video and stuff of, books that I read for school, and I'll, catch you guys up on those books that I read this past semester for school, but these are the non-school related books that I read for fun throughout summer vacation and, my last semester in school and everything. And then, the couple of books that I picked up after school finally finished. So I have 4 books that I actually ended up completing and 2 books that I'm kind of in the middle of that I'm still going to end up mentioning because I'm about halfway through both of those books. Now the first book I have here is one that I mentioned in my June wrap-up because I was almost done with this book back in June, and that is The Possible by Tara Altebrando. This is a YA mystery thriller that follows our main character Kaylee and her kind of trying to figure out if she has telekinetic powers or not. Her mother was actually put in jail for the murder of her little brother, and the people feel like there were telekinetic powers involved. Kaylee's mother is convinced that she can control things with her mind, and Kaylee feels like she might have inherited some of these abilities. So throughout the novel, you're kind of trying to figure out the mystery behind her brother's death and kind of this whole conspiracy that is dealing with telekinetic powers, if this is real or not. So you're constantly kind of trying to, figure out if it's true, if it isn't true, if she is really lying, if this is all in her head and everything. And I enjoyed the plot. I enjoyed this concept. This is the one thing I feel like Tara Altebrando does well, is that she writes great plots that are really intriguing, and they kind of push you to kind of keep going. And I really enjoyed that about her writing. I enjoyed that about The Leaving by her when I read it back in June, and I enjoyed it about this book also when I picked it up immediately after I read The Leaving. But yeah, I feel like I said, the plot was very strong and I really enjoyed it, but Kaylee as a main character just wasn't likable at all. She's very self-centered, very just unlikable, and not in a good way. I tend to really like unlikable characters when they're purposely unlikable, but I feel like Kaylee wasn't supposed to be purposely unlikable, and I don't know, a lot of the stuff that she would do would rub me the wrong way, especially how kind of she treated her friends and stuff. I just really didn't enjoy that aspect of this novel. I think that's what kept me from enjoying this novel as much as I would have, is just Kaylee as a main character. But the plot, I feel, was very fun and definitely kept me intrigued throughout the entire thing. I feel like this is a very solid mystery. Tara Altebrando is definitely becoming one of my go-to YA mystery kind of authors. I've read so far 2 of her books, and I think she has one more that she just came out with that I really want to read now because that one also sounds intriguing. So yeah, we'll see what happens whenever I end up picking up her 3rd book, because this is another author I feel like that I'm intrigued to read all of her books, but I'm still not loving it. It's kind of like that love-hate relationship I have with Lauren Oliver, where I'm intrigued to continue to read her books, but there's nothing that I've absolutely ended up loving about that author, and this author I feel like falls into that same category. And I gave The Possible a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read for fun is one that I mentioned in my favorites video of 2018, which I will link down below because it's most likely going to get posted before this video, but that is All Your Perfects by Colleen Hoover, and this is an amazing novel that follows 2 main characters, Quinn and Graham, as they kind of, meet and fall in love and get married, but then it deals with all of the kind of dark ordeals of marriage and the kind of things that happen within a marriage. It deals with a lot of topics that a lot of married couples go through, and I feel like me as a married man in my 30s, this is definitely a book that I was able to kind of connect with between, because of the characters and the plot and the, real life situations that are going on within this marriage. I feel like are great and are well done. This is definitely a book that will definitely make you cry. Colleen Hoover is definitely one of my guilty pleasure authors. I've mentioned it before, and she's just, I feel like she has very intriguing plots. A lot of people complain because, she writes about a lot of controversial things and stuff, but they're, it's life, life is filled with controversial things and controversial people and controversial themes. So writing about it, I feel like, isn't necessarily romanticizing it. It's sometimes bringing things to light. So Colleen Hoover is definitely one that myself and my wife actually ended up loving. We've read a lot of her books and we discussed them together, and I like, just having that connection between this author and my wife, and just, having fun reading her books and everything. This is definitely one that I ended up enjoying, and kind of how, you know, these situations within this marriage kind of played out between these two characters. And obviously, I gave All Your Perfects by Colleen Hoover a 5 out of 5 stars. And the next book I finished, this was probably like in December. I read this one the last week of classes, because between June and December, I didn't read anything for fun outside of school readings, but this one I actually ended up reading the last week of class because I was done with all of the school readings, and I ended up actually really enjoying this one, and that is Furthermore by Tahereh Mafi. I'd never read anything by Tahereh Mafi before. This is the first book by her that I've read, and I've heard really good things about her writing, and, you know, she's very well known here in the booktube community, and, you know, people really enjoy her Shatter Me series and stuff. So yeah, Furthermore is her middle grade novel that follows our main character, Alice, and she's in a world where, you know, everything is filled with color, and she's one of the only people that are colorless, and, you know, she doesn't really feel like she has a purpose in this world. And, you know, in this world, they're kind of, you know, at a certain age, they're kind of put through some kind of like competition or these trials or tests to get tasked, and then that task is kind of their thing that they have to fulfill in their life, like their greatest calling. And so Alice is kind of struggling with her not having color, not knowing what she's going to get tasked to. And very early on, she, you know, ends up befriending a boy named Oliver, and together they kind of go on this adventure and everything. Very middle grade, very fun. I feel like the writing is very beautiful, and there are certain aspects in here that are really dark that I really ended up enjoying. I feel like this is, you know, one of my more favorite middle grades. I don't really read tons of middle grade, but when I, you know, pick it up, I tend to enjoy it really well. There are some, you know, middle grade books that I end up really loving and I really end up connecting to. This is, I feel like, is definitely one of them. I'm definitely intrigued to continue on with this series. I think it's just, there's one more book in here that I think is a companion that's called Poisonwood, if I'm not mistaken, that I really want to end up reading because I enjoyed this world. I enjoyed Alice and Oliver's journey, kind of the topics that were being talked about in this book about accepting differences between other people who may not be the same as you. And I really ended up loving Tahereh Mafi's writing style and everything, because I can now see what people, you know, talk about when they talk about Tahereh Mafi's writing. I thought it was beautiful, and I really ended up enjoying this one. I think I gave this one like a 4.5 out of 5 stars. And the last book I read in 2018 in December was Verity by Colleen Hoover. Another Colleen Hoover book, but this one was actually self-published by Colleen Hoover, and this is she calls it a romantic thriller. It follows our main character, Lauren Ashley, who's a struggling writer. She's published before, but her books aren't doing very well. She doesn't really like to be in the public eye very much, so she doesn't really promote her books a lot, and she's kind of like in a slump right now with her publisher and with her writing and everything. So she's presented with the opportunity to continue to write a series of another author who got into an accident and isn't able to continue writing her novels. So she is sent off to the home of this author in this very, you know, dark mansion out in the middle of nowhere to continue writing the series. So in this home, she ends up meeting this author's husband, and they kind of end up, you know, falling for each other. There's a mystery going on with the wife, and, you know, she's in a coma and she can't speak or anything, and it's very weird. There's a really weird vibe from the very beginning of this novel, and it goes on throughout the entire thing because you want to know kind of what's going on with this author who can't continue her series, what connection she shares with Lauren Ashley, why was she picked out of so many authors they could have picked to continue on writing her series. Why did they pick her, who isn't as well known and doesn't have as much experience or anything? And yeah, there's a lot of weird things going on in this house and with the husband and the kids, and this is a very, very weird book that definitely kept me intrigued throughout the entire thing. I mean, in kind of true Colleen Hoover form, it's very addicting. You can't put this thing down. You know, a lot of the writing, I feel, some of the lines in here are extremely bad, in my opinion. I mean, there are some things in here that I've just, like, it made my eyes roll, but the plot itself is what kept me kind of moving forward. This is definitely not a book that is intended for YA audiences. I know some of Colleen Hoover's books can kind of sway a little bit toward YA or new adult. This is definitely a more new adult book. There's definitely some content in here that is very, very strong and not appropriate for children. But, you know, as a lover of Colleen Hoover books, I think that this was a very solid book. I mean, it goes outside of her normal genre of just like romance and adds that thriller aspect in there that I really ended up enjoying and definitely kept me intrigued. And I think I ended up giving this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I initially gave it a 5 stars on Goodreads, but the more I sat with this book, I realized that there were some kind of like really horrible lines and writing aspects throughout this book that I just didn't really enjoy. So either way, I still ended up enjoying the plot, and I still gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars or so. Now, the two books that I'm currently in the middle of and kind of struggling to get through, I don't know if I'm just like in a little bit of a slump, or, you know, I still feel like I can't completely relax because it hasn't hit me that I'm done with school and I don't have a lot of things going on, but I'm just like struggling to get through these books. I don't know if it's just because they're denser and longer, but the first one is The Demon King by Cindy Williams Chima. This is the first book in the Seven Realms series, which I started reading a little while ago. I'm about halfway through this book, and so far enjoying it, but I'm just like, there's something about it that's just like, I can't push through it. I don't know if it's the book or if it's just me, but I really want to push through this book because I've heard amazing things about it. I mean, I feel like this is a series that's going to become very, very epic as it continues on, and I really want to push through it. I don't want to DNF it at all because I own all of the books in this series. But yes, I don't know. I'm intrigued by this world and by these characters, but I feel like it's just me. I'm just struggling to push through this. And then the next book that I'm currently in the middle of is Bits and Pieces by Jonathan Mayberry, which is the 5th book in the Rotten Ruin series. But this is kind of like a collection of short stories that takes place within this world, and it's going kind of back and forth in the timeline of the actual Rotten Ruin series by Jonathan Mayberry, which is a zombie series. If you know, for those of you who don't know, if, you know, fans of The Walking Dead, I would really end up enjoying this series because I feel like it's very fun. You know, zombie, lots of actions and stuff, but I don't know, there's something about this one. Again, I don't know if it's me or if it's just the book, but some of these short stories, I feel like obviously some are going to be better than others. Some, I feel like so far aren't making much sense to be included within this like collection of short stories, but you know, this is another one that I'm buddy reading with my friend Di from Dice's 19 because we've buddy read this entire series so far, so we want to continue reading Jonathan Mayberry's books and, you know, books within this series. So I definitely need to try and finish this one. This is another one that I'm probably about 250 pages or so into this one. But yes, I need to finish this one. I need to keep pushing myself to read this. But I feel like at this point it's me because I love the Rotten Ruin series. I love this world, and just like not having the desire to sit down and read, I feel like it's just me. Like, I don't feel like it's these books at all. I feel like it's just me at this point. So yeah, guys, that is it for the books I read for fun between June and December, and then the two books that I'm kind of in the middle of right now. Comment down below. Let me know if you guys have read any of these books and what your thoughts are. Yeah, if you guys have read Seven Realms series or the Rotten Ruin series or anything and want to motivate me to kind of push through these, feel free to do so because I definitely need some motivation right now when it comes to my reading. Thank you guys all again for watching, and I will see you all next time.